Once upon a time, Britain was the landlord of the world, owning a quarter of the planet, which is frankly a ridiculous amount of real estate. But the crown jewel of this collection was India. It wasn't just a colony, it was the economic engine keeping the tiny island of Britain powerful. Then World War II happened. Britain fought the Nazis and won, which was great for freedom, but absolutely terrible for their national bank account. Stalin didn't trust the West. He wanted a buffer zone. So he pushed Poland 200 miles to the west, like moving a sofa. Meanwhile, India was done with being a tenant. Quit India became the slogan, while Gandhi starved himself and millions marched in the streets. The British soldiers were exhausted. They just wanted to go home to their families, drink tea, and not worry about controlling 400 million angry people. In London, Prime Minister Clement Attlee looked at the numbers and made a cold business decision: liquidation. We are selling the shop immediately. They decided to leave. But they didn't want to just walk away. They wanted a transfer of power that looked dignified, honorable, and organized. He announced the Marshall Plan, basically saying, "Here is billions of dollars. Please take it and promise not to be communist." He was charming and charismatic. His job was to handshake his way through the process and get the British Army out by June 1948. But when he landed in Delhi, reality hit him hard. The country wasn't just restless, it was on the verge of a massive civil war. Mountbatten panicked. He realized waiting until 1948 would mean presiding over a bloodbath. He needed to speed-run the independence process right now. He looked at the calendar and arbitrarily picked a date: August 15, 1947. He cut the timeline from 1 year down to just 10 weeks. Imagine trying to dismantle a government that ruled for 200 years in less than 3 months. It was reckless, dangerous, and completely insane. Mountbatten sat down with the three main players: Nehru for the Hindus, Jinnah for the Muslims, and Gandhi, the father of the nation. Nehru was a dreamer. He wanted a united, socialist India where religion was personal, not political. He believed everyone could just get along. Jinnah was a realist. He looked at the census data and saw that Muslims were a minority. He didn't trust the Hindu majority to be fair. To Jinnah, a united India meant Muslims would be permanent second-class citizens, always outvoted by the Hindu population. He refused that fate. His demand was simple but non-negotiable: a separate homeland called Pakistan, the land of the pure, or else, he warned, there would be chaos. Gandhi was devastated. To him, cutting India in half was like cutting his own mother in half. He called it a vivisection of the soul. But the streets were already burning. In 1946, the Direct Action Day riots in Calcutta left thousands dead in just a few horrifying days. The violence spread like wildfire. Retaliation followed retaliation. An eye for an eye, until everyone was going blind with rage and hatred. Mountbatten looked at the police reports. The British forces were losing control. He realized he had to separate the fighting dogs before leaving. He announced the Partition Plan. The country would be divided: India for the Hindu majority, Pakistan for the Muslim majority. It was official. Now they needed someone to draw the line, someone neutral. So they found Cyril Radcliffe, a brilliant lawyer who had never been east of Paris. Why him? Because he knew nothing. He had no friends in India, no bias, and crucially, no idea what he was walking into. He arrived in Delhi in the middle of a scorching summer. He immediately caught dysentery and spent half his time running to the bathroom. They gave him a desk, a pile of dusty maps, and a deadline that was practically a joke: 5 weeks to divide a subcontinent. The maps were outdated. Some didn't even show recent villages or canals. He was basically flying blind, deciding the fate of millions with a pencil. He had advisors from both sides, but they just argued constantly. One wanted a city, the other wanted a river. Radcliffe stopped listening. He locked himself in a bungalow. He worked 14 hours a day, terrified that if he met anyone, he would be accused of bias. The Punjab region was the hardest. It was the breadbasket of India, with a complex system of irrigation canals that watered the fields. Radcliffe's line cut right through the canals. Suddenly, the water source was in India, but the fields were in Pakistan. It was a nightmare. He split the railway network. He split the electrical grid. He even split libraries. It was surgery performed with a blunt meat cleaver. It wasn't just land. The government had to divide everything. Every asset of the British Raj had to be split: 80% to India, 20% to Pakistan. I mean everything. They divided desks, chairs, typewriters, and even paperclips. You get 4 pencils, I get 1. It was petty and ridiculous. In libraries, they divided books. Did India get the dictionary from A to K and Pakistan get L to Z? It was almost that stupid. The army bands had to divide their instruments. We take the trumpets, you take the drums. Who gets the flute? Toss a coin. In Lahore, they even had to divide the inmates of the lunatic asylum. Muslim lunatics to Pakistan, Hindu lunatics to India. There's a famous story about an inmate who climbed a tree and refused to come down, saying he wanted to live in the tree, not India. Finally, on August 12, Radcliffe put down his pencil. The line was drawn. The job was done. But Mountbatten hesitated. Mountbatten took the map and locked it away. He decided not to reveal it until after the independence parties were over. He knew the map would cause chaos. He didn't want blood on his hands during the celebration photos. So, he kept it a secret. While Radcliffe was drawing, there was another problem. The 565 princely states. These were mini-kingdoms ruled by eccentric Maharajas within India. Some were incredibly rich. They had palaces, private armies, and fleets of Rolls-Royces. They had to choose a side too. India's Iron Man Sardar Patel went around collecting these kingdoms like Pokemon. He used diplomacy, threats, and hugs to get them to join. The Nawab of Junagadh was a Muslim who loved dogs more than people. He tried to join Pakistan even though his state was inside India. It didn't work. The people revolted, the Indian army rolled in, and the Nawab fled to Pakistan, taking his dogs but leaving his wives behind. Then there was Hyderabad, right in the belly of India. The Nizam wanted to be an independent country. He even printed his own currency. India said absolutely not. They launched Operation Polo, invaded the state, and forced the Nizam to surrender in just 5 days. But the biggest headache was Kashmir, a Muslim-majority state with a Hindu king. He couldn't decide, so he just waited and stalled. His indecision was fatal. Tribal fighters from Pakistan invaded, hoping to grab the territory by force. The king panicked and called for help. He signed the papers to join India in exchange for protection. Indian troops landed, and the First War began immediately. At the stroke of midnight, August 15, 1947, India awoke to life and freedom. The Union Jack came down for the last time. Nehru gave a beautiful speech about destiny. Crowds cheered. There was hope in the air. People thought the worst was finally over. But millions of people in the border regions were celebrating without knowing which country they were actually standing in at that moment. 2 days later, the Radcliffe line was published. The hangover from the party was replaced instantly by sheer terror and confusion. Suddenly, you weren't just a farmer anymore. You were an enemy alien in your own home. If you stayed, you might die. Panic set in immediately. People grabbed their gold, their children, and whatever food they had, preparing to leave their ancestral homes forever. Columns of refugees, miles long, started trudging through the mud. Muslims heading west, Hindus and Sikhs heading east, crossing paths. It was a humanitarian catastrophe. There was no food, no water, and monsoon rains were turning the roads into deadly swamps. Then the gangs appeared. Armed militias roamed the countryside, hunting the refugees. Brutality became the norm, and mercy was forgotten. Stories of violence against women were horrific. Many families took their own lives, rather than fall into the hands of the mob. The railways were the only hope for many. People crammed onto trains, sitting on the roofs, hanging off the sides, desperate to escape. But the trains were easy targets. Saboteurs would derail them, or stop them in remote areas to attack the helpless passengers. The legend of the ghost trains was born. A train would pull into Lahore station from India, and not a single living soul would step off. The carriages were silent, filled only with the dead. It was a message written in blood sent across the new border. The army, which had just been divided, was often useless. Soldiers sometimes joined the mobs instead of stopping them. Delhi became a city of refugees. Parks, schools, and old forts were turned into massive camps, housing hundreds of thousands of traumatized people. Gandhi, an old man now, walked barefoot through the rioting villages. He fasted again, risking his life to stop the madness. Tragically, his message of peace got him killed. In 1948, a Hindu extremist assassinated him for being too soft on Pakistan. The father of the nation died seeing his family torn apart. His death shocked the two nations into a temporary uneasy ceasefire. And what about Cyril Radcliffe? The man who drew the line? He left India immediately after handing in the map, terrified. Before leaving, he gathered all his notes and drafts and burned them. He wanted no evidence of how he made his decisions. He refused to accept his salary of £3,000. He told his family he couldn't take money for a job that caused so much pain. He never returned to India or Pakistan. He lived the rest of his life haunted by the millions of ghosts created by his pencil. The map he drew was a disaster. Pakistan was split into two chunks separated by 1,000 miles of hostile Indian territory. It was geopolitically impossible. In 1971, East Pakistan revolted. India helped them, and Bangladesh was born after another bloody war. Today, the Radcliffe Line is still there. It's marked by double fences, bunkers, and thousands of floodlights visible from space. It's so bright you can see it from the International Space Station, an artificial scar glowing in the night, dividing the land. Every day, soldiers at the Wagah border perform a ceremony where they stomp their feet and glare at each other. It's theater, but the hatred is real. Both countries now have nuclear weapons. They point missiles at each other across the line drawn by a lawyer in a rush. Kashmir remains divided and dangerous. It is the most heavily militarized zone in the world, a flashpoint that could trigger World War III. The British Empire is long gone, but the consequences of their exit strategy are still shaping the modern world today. It wasn't just India. In Palestine, in Africa, the British drew lines on maps and left, creating conflicts that burn to this day. History is often told as a story of great men making great decisions, but sometimes it's just tired men making fast decisions. The Partition of India teaches us a brutal lesson you cannot divide: a culture, a history, and a people with a simple stroke of a pen. Today, Indians and Pakistanis eat the same food, speak similar languages, and share the same history, but they are separated by a wall of fear. A wall built on the bones of 1 million people who died because an empire wanted to catch an early flight home. Understanding this line helps us understand why the world looks the way it does today. It's not just a line, it's a wound. Maybe one day the wound will heal. But for now, the Radcliffe Line stands as a monument to the danger of hasty decisions. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this depressing history lesson, please smash that like button so I can feed my cat. Subscribing helps me buy more maps to draw lines on. Just kidding. Please subscribe so we can reach 1 million.